Hi guys, welcome back to another professional picks video. This week we're going to be covering the ACC conference, and I made this into a top 10 video with the bottom third of teams being a little bit weaker. So last year the ACC was a little bit down. They had Virginia and FSU as their top two teams in March Madness, both as 4 seeds. So I expect the overall conference level of play to increase this year. Just the top two teams nationally ranked right now are Duke at number 11, North Carolina at 17. But I think these rankings are a little bit low even. You have Baylor ranked ahead of Duke, which I don't see makes any sense other than Baylor getting recognition for their tournament championship last year. And then they also have Arkansas ahead of North Carolina, which also makes no sense to me. So I think the ACC's got some value in general to start the season, and I definitely expect them to bounce back from the previous year. And also, just in the recap at the very end, I'll be breaking my rankings down into tiers, kind of saying which teams could surprise, although I have them ranked a little bit lower, and then pretty much just who you probably shouldn't be betting on this year. With that, we'll jump right into the content. As always, we have our partnership with Prize Picks. They'll match your first deposit of up to $100 if you use our promo code there on the left, ProPicks. And this app is great for college sports. I've mentioned this before already, but you can't bet on college players' props and FanDuel or DraftKings. So this app allows you to do that, and I pretty much use it for that features, like solely that feature. They have the flex play, built-in promo. You can get one leg wrong on your entry and still get your at least a little bit money back. But if it's a 3-leg, 4-leg, 5-leg, and you just get one wrong, you're actually going to be profiting still. And then the power plays, you're just traditional parlay. And once again, promo code is ProPicks. They'll match your first deposit of up to $100. And then for our rankings, we're starting off with Notre Dame here at number 10. I think they're going to be a little bit better than the previous season. They finished last year at number 11, pretty much returning everybody, except they got Paul Atkinson here in at center. He was a transfer from Yale, and he was actually the Ivy League or co-Ivy League Player of the Year in 2019, 2020. So their conference didn't play at all with COVID. So it's going to be interesting to see if his level of play carries over to this year, but they're going to need him to play very well in the post. And looking on paper here, the team looks pretty great, actually. You got a solid point guard, really, really good power forward. His percentiles go, he's one of the elite scorers in the post in all of the country. But if you look a little bit more into this team, there's definitely some dysfunction. Cormac Ryan, for example, only shot 38.7% from the field. So I don't love the shooting guard position. Dane Goodwin is pretty solid, rebounds the ball, scores a little bit. And there's experience all throughout the roster. But the big thing you can't see on the paper here is they were actually the worst defensive team out of all the Power 5 conferences last year. So bringing back pretty much everybody. I don't expect that to change. They've got Mike Brey still. He's been their coach forever. I just feel like this team's going to really struggle to score or struggle to defend other teams, but they're going to put up a lot of points. They're definitely going to see high lines for the over-unders here. I think they could finish up to maybe 7th in the conference, but no higher than that. And you got Mike Brey on the hot seat. And just not enough things you really love about this team other than the experience and the scoring. But I just don't see too high of a ceiling with their really honestly terrible defense and a pretty loaded conference. I also considered Miami here. I love Isaiah Wong, Cameron McGusty, but they just lost too many players in the transfer portal this year. And that's why I gave Notre Dame my number 10 spot. Here at number 9, we've got Clemson, who is total opposite of Notre Dame. They were the best. They had the best defensive efficiency in the ACC last year. And for that reason, you kind of look at the team on paper and you don't love what you see. They finished 5th in the conference last year, which was Um, just much higher than a lot of people had them projected. They bring back some solid pieces. Hunter Tyson at center, Nick Honor, and Elamir Dawes. All just pretty solid rotational players, but they lost the heart and soul of their team in Amir Sims. He graduated, or he's in the NBA now, I think on the Knicks actually. But overall, I just don't love the team on paper. I'm giving them the 9th spot because of their great defensive play and how well they played last year. If it weren't for that, I would probably have them about 11 or 12. But you got David Collins coming in from USF, Southern Florida. You expect him to really take over a lot of the usage out of all the guards. And then Naz Bohannon's the big wild card for them. He was dominated for Youngstown State. And if he could carry that over, I expect this team to be good enough on the defensive end to finish in around this 9th spot, maybe in the middle of the pack. Just haven't loved Clemson last year. I feel like they got pretty lucky and overperformed. So I think this 9 spot's pretty solid of where you should have them at. And then moving forward, you got Syracuse. I have them at the 8. I've seen, I think John Rothstein has them at number 6. They have some interesting pieces for sure, but they did lose Quincy Guerrier to Oregon. He was my favorite player on their team. And then I also have it listed there. You got Cole Swider from Villanova. He's my wild card for them. His play style definitely fits how Syracuse wants to play. He could shoot and stretch the floor from the post spot a little bit, but his production just never really came around for Villanova. So I think people might be expecting a little bit too much from him. Benny Williams could be great. Rothstein again has him as one of his potentially most impactful freshmen. I think he's definitely the player Syracuse needs to run this zone with, especially with a lot of other guys being plus scorers and not really great defenders. With Buddy Boeheim, and you got Jimmy Boeheim coming in from Cornell, you're definitely going to have some great shooting along with Joseph Girard. I just kind of view all those guys as subpar defenders. So it's not really your traditional Syracuse team. I'm not sold at all on their post play. Borama Sidibe didn't play last year, so this is 2019-2020 stats. And I just feel like their post play is going to be way too weak. I know they run their 2-3, so they kind of cover those bases pretty well. But they're going to be too reliant on the three-pointer, and they're going to lose some games that they shouldn't lose, but they're going to beat some teams that they probably shouldn't beat also. And I just think it's going to be your classic Syracuse team getting a lower seed in the March Madness tournament if they make it at all, and they have the potential to upset some very good teams. And then here at number 7, we have NC State. So I never know how to read NC State. I feel like looking on paper, they always have a really solid roster, but they kind of always underperform. You're going to have Thomas Allen and Darian Sebring off the bench. There's some pretty decent contributors, but other than that, you're kind of just going to get what you see here on the paper. Cam Hayes will definitely improve after his freshman year. He really came around at the end of the year with Devon Daniels missing the second half of the season. And I really like Casey Morsell in this lineup from Virginia. He's going to provide some defense on the perimeter, probably score a little bit more. His playing time went down in his second year for the Cavaliers. So I like his fit on this team with Cam Hayes being more of a scorer, facilitator. You love Manny Bates returning. He's on pace for the all-time leader in blocks and field goal percentage if he sticks out his last 2 years at NC State. And then Jarrett Cole-Helms will probably really provide most of the scoring. Just really solid senior and be the leader for them. The big question is at power forward with Greg Gant from Providence. I don't see him playing much better. He shot low percentage in Big East play. So that's just I'm a little curious to see how that translates to the ACC. They just have solid overall team, a couple contributors off the bench. I have them over Syracuse because I like their posts a lot more, and I think they match up decently with the guards. I don't see this team overperforming too much, but I think they're pretty solid to finish in the middle of the pack. And then here we got Florida State. I'm definitely down on them compared to most other people. I actually had them originally at my 3 spot, and then looking more into the rosters, I moved them down all the way to number 6. Like Syracuse, they're going to be an untraditional Florida State team. They're lacking at center where they had Balsa last year, and I just don't see Tanner really stepping up into that spot. I think they're going to end up playing a little bit more small ball, move Malik Osborne to power or center, and then Matthew Cleveland will probably eventually join the starting lineup here. But overall, you got tons of experience. You got Anthony Pollitt coming back for like his 5th year now. He's like or maybe even his 6th year. I don't know. He's been there forever. And then Caleb Mills, those are also his 2019-2020 stats for Houston. He dropped out of the season after only playing a couple games last year. So he's a little bit of a question, but he'll definitely provide some shooting from the guard spot. And then you're relying on Jae'lyn Worley, the number 42 overall recruit, to really run this offense. And you don't really have many other point guard options. You got, I think his name is Raekwon Evans. He's just a little bit huskier, just a solid point guard. So I don't see the point guard as a plus position. I see the small forward and shooting guards as potential plus spots for them. I just don't think they're going to be able to play their traditional Florida State basketball where they run a platoon style. They're not deep enough this year or have the size in the post. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Leonard Williams changes how they're going to play this year, try to fit the lineup a little bit more, run a little bit more small ball. But as usual, they always lack a star. They're probably going to prove me wrong. I could easily see them finishing 3rd in the conference. But I just don't see it this year. Not as in love with Florida State as I've been in the past. Then we're going to number 5, Virginia, who has been my favorite team in the ACC the last 10 years. Also, another team not looking too great on paper, especially due to the center position. I just don't see anybody on the roster filling that hole. I do love Kihei Clark at point guard. I do really like Armand Franklin from Indiana. This team's going to play similar style to Florida State, a lot more small ball. You need Jaden Gardner to really step up, the transfer from Eastern Carolina. This team has a lot of questions too, honestly. The main reason I have them ahead of Florida State and up at the 5 spot is because Tony Bennett's their head coach. He always gets the most out of his players, plays some of the best defense, if not the best defense in all of the country. And they have some potential options to fill those holes. You got Igor Milicic, who might be a more rotational center, or Shedrick, who could even take over that spot too. So it's going to be really interesting to see which of the 3 end up getting that position. Tane Murray is another recruit from Australia who I think was definitely going to get minutes. And then you got Statman and McCorkle who have to step up as well. So there's just so many questions, but they have a lot of potential ways to answer those. In the end, this really just comes down to Tony Bennett as head coach. And I think he's going to figure it out for them. They finished 1st in the conference last year, but they lost a lot of talented players. It still feels a little low for Virginia, but I don't like the team very much on paper, but you can never count out the Cavaliers. And then here at number 4, we have the Virginia Tech Hokies. I love their front court. I know Naheem Eileen is more of a shooting guard, but we have him at the 3 spot. So the 3 through 5 is great. Everybody on this team could shoot it. You get Storm Murphy, who's going to add a little bit of a plus on the offensive end, especially in the regard of shooting. He was also recruited by Mike Young out of high school, played for him at Wofford before he came over to Virginia Tech, and then Storm Murphy followed him here. Hunter Couture will also provide perimeter shooting. So you get perimeter shooting, but not the best defenders in the guard spots. And then the front court, kind of similar situation. A lot of very good skilled players, but they're just a little bit undersized. And so I think this team will be able to score and put up points against anybody, but the question kind of comes down to defense by just looking at the roster. Um, but when you look a little bit further into it, they were in the top quarter of the whole nation last year defensively. I think Mike Young and this roster is going to figure it out. I think they're going to be a little bit better than last year, actually, even though they finished third. I just think the conference is a lot better in general. Just the depth is going to kill them eventually, and the size, at least against the very elite teams. I think against anybody that's pretty good, though, they should definitely handle their business. And then this is a team that this is my sleeper team at the Louisville Cardinal. Obviously, they lost Carlik Jones and David Johnson, who were their two leading scorers last year, but they bring back all their forwards and posts from a team that was pretty good, finished seventh in the ACC. They kind of fell off at the end of the year, but they've got a lot of young talent. I kind of expect Samuel Williamson to move over to that power forward spot. If Malik Williams plays this year, he'll be a huge addition at center. And then if you have Dre Davis and the transfer Faulkner coming off the bench, that provides a great post player and then a great facilitator to bring in too. And then Noah Locke's going to be really nice with this roster to just stretch out the floor. He'll sit in the corner a lot, hit those threes. And then West is the transfer from Marshall, who I love facilitating for this team. I want to see the ball more in these post players' hands. I really like Williamson. Jae'lyn Withers played great for a freshman in the ACC. You could see there he averaged over 10 points, over 7.5 boards, over 55% shooting as a freshman. You only expect him to get even a little bit better. I think their post play is kind of unmatched other than the top two teams that you'll see with Duke and UNC. It's really their guard positions that I think will struggle because they're a little bit smaller, a little bit less athletic. So just the talent disparity, I can't put them in the top two, but they're going to be really hard-nosed. Your classic Louisville team with physically imposing forwards who are really just going to keep games close no matter what. And then number two, UNC, back and forth between having them at number one. So now that you know UNC is my number two, you know Duke's my number one. And the majority of that is due to their perimeter inefficiency. Caleb Love shot 31.6 from the field last year, which you have to believe he can't do any worse than that. He's found his stride in some games, but he's going to have to be better if this team is going to be in the top 17 where they have him ranked right now. Yeah, Kerwin Walton, who I would like to see start just for the size wise, but RJ Davis and him could definitely either switch out there, move Kerwin Walton at 6'5" to the small forward spot, and that would provide a little bit more shooting. RJ Davis and Kerwin Walton in their little preseason event for the fans, they both made, I think it was 31 of 43s. So I expect this perimeter shooting to get better. That was a huge question for them last year. The reason I have Leaky Black at small forward is because his defensive presence. He's just that guy that does a little bit of everything that doesn't exactly show up on the stat sheet. And then as of now, I've got Dawson Garcia at power forward. Very solid player, transfer from Marquette. I have him there because I think he's more of your traditional post. And if you can have Brady Manick coming off the bench as a rotational post who's going to stretch the floor, I think that's going to add a lot to this offense. Really free up some space for Armando Bacot to go to work down there. Hubert Davis is saying he's taken on more of a leadership role, which is exactly what this team was missing last year. When they got down, they just looked lost. They definitely played a little bit more of a front runner style. But there's just so much talent on this team. I think with a lot of contributors returning, I think Hubert Davis can definitely figure it out. He obviously loves this university and he's going to give his best effort to keep them at the top. I just have them slightly behind Duke due to their perimeter play And I need to see in-game action to really believe this improvement on perimeter shooting and just overall guard efficiency. For that reason, I have Duke at number 1. They finished 10th in the conference last year, but pretty much all the analysts have them at number 1 as well. Wendell Moore really needs to take over that leadership role with the overall young roster. He hasn't looked great, but anytime you get a top recruit playing into his junior season, you could just expect it, at the very least, solid play. Jeremy Roach, I also expect to step up. He was a little bit in DJ Stewart's shadow last year, but another very highly recruited guard who I think slightly underperformed last year. The main reason I love this team is because of their post play. Mark Williams didn't get a lot of opportunities at the beginning of the year, but by the time it got to the end of the season and in their very last game before it was shortened due to COVID, he put up 23 points and 19 rebounds, which is just insane numbers for NCAA basketball. So I expect him to at least return a little bit to that form he had at the end of the season when he started getting those minutes. He's an absolute force down there. He's big body, definitely will protect the paint. And then you have and you pair him with Paolo Banchero for your interior. Paolo Banchero is a lot of people have him as the ACC preseason favorite for player of the year. He's a number 2 recruit, could easily go number 1 in the draft. I don't think other teams will be able to touch this front court, at least in the ACC. This will also allow him to play with some of the top talent in the Big Ten. You got AJ Griffin at small forward, another athletic player, kind of similar to Wendell Moore Jr. in my mind, although I expect AJ Griffin to be able to score the ball a little bit better. This is also Mike Krzyzewski's last season as head coach at Duke. There's no way he could have ended his career after last year. I definitely expect him to have a bounce back year and try to finish this thing strong. So I could easily see them finish in this 1 spot. Definitely see them even moving into the top 10, top 5 in the country. The inexperience might hurt them a little bit, but Duke has been used to that recently with all the one and dones they've been getting lately. And I also have the note here that they're athletic, but they lack perimeter shooting. That can easily be answered on the bench if you could throw in Joey Baker and you could play in some solid minutes. Also have the freshman Trevor Keels coming in. And then you also have a rotational post in Theo John, who was a starter for Marquette for years. So it's a lot of options overall. I think the overall athleticism and size of this team is going to be really hard for most teams to match up with. And the reason I have them slightly ahead of UNC is, like I mentioned, I don't trust Caleb Love and RJ Davis yet. I do like Wendell Moore Jr. and Jeremy Roach a little bit more, especially because they don't seem to force things too much. I think they're going to get the ball into the post more and just play a little bit smarter basketball. And for that reason, Duke is my ACC favorites. Here you can see my tiers. I have Duke and North Carolina in the first tier. I just think their overall talent is unmatched. The teams in the second tier, I think, could definitely move up and compete for the 1 and 2 spots. But just looking at the paper and how these teams are composed, the Tar Heels and the Blue Devils have by far the most talent. All the teams in the second tier, I think, are really good, but they each have their own weaknesses, whether it's Louisville for their poor depth, Virginia Tech also for the poor depth, a little undersized, Virginia, no center, Florida State, no center. The third tier, these are teams I expect that can move up to the second tier, possibly finish in the 3rd spot, although I don't really see it. I think these are solid teams that have some potential to overperform, but I don't expect them to win the conference at all. And then Notre Dame, I have at number 10. I think the conference really drops off around this point. That's why I didn't even mention the other teams other than Miami, because Notre Dame looks okay on paper, but they're just terrible on the defensive end. There's no way they're going to be able to turn it around with having basically the same players. So that wraps up our ACC rankings. I hope you guys like this video. Please let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything. I just want to mention I know the Big Ten extremely well. I think the ACC is my second conference. So let me know if you guys think I had anything wrong here, or if there's anything you would like me to go a little bit more depth into. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And stay tuned for the next video. Unless you guys comment otherwise, I think we're going to be doing the SEC. Let's have a great college basketball this year.